Shall we begin the pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Khan.
Here.
Vaughn.
Here.
Shoemaker.
Here.
Hofstadter.
Here.
Huffy. Here. Poland. Here.
Thank you. May we have a motion to excuse Bob from tonight's meeting?
So moved. Second. Poland. Aye. Huffy. Aye. Khan.
Aye.
Shoemaker.
Aye.
Hofstadter.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to regular chambers. We have some visitors that wish to address council this evening.
That's smart. Good evening. Michelle Wood with the Holmes Soil and Water Conservation District.
I'm John Morrison with the same.
And we're here to talk about a project that we think will benefit Millersburg as well as Holmes County. Killbuck Creek is a natural resources in our county that is largely overlooked until it causes flooding, and then we kind of take notice of it. It tends to accumulate log jams. It's just the nature of how that creek works. And we are taking a lead in our office to get the stretch from Killbuck, or Millersburg to Killbuck cleared of log jam obstructions. Log jams aren't all bad. There are wildlife benefits to having log jams. They do, add to the stream structure. What we're trying to do is get them cleared. It's a passage thing, so that if they're not completely obstructing the channel, they're not going to create those log jams that back up water, and it should help in, especially small-scale flooding. It's not going to be, it's not the total answer, but it's one piece of getting to reducing that flooding. The handout that John just gave you kind of summarizes the project. I mean, we're not going to go over that in great detail. I'll leave that with you so you can take a look at it. But we are in the process of putting a grant application together to the Muskingum Watershed Conservancy District to get funding through their debris removal program to take out those log jams. There are 7 log jams that have been identified, that we identified last summer, which seems so long ago. Wasn't, but you'll see that map on the back. There are several that are pretty large. One that is really large behind Walmart. I don't know if any of you have ever seen that one, but it's pretty mammoth. So you see the pictures there. They accumulate trash, accumulate other, they kind of form islands after they've been in there for a while. So we've got obviously some project goals for this. The main goal is then for flood control. That is kind of the obvious one. But there are also other goals associated with this. We think that Killbuck has potential for recreational use. And I just this past Saturday kayaked the Walhonding River. And we put in at Mohawk Dam, and we took out just like 5 or 6 miles at Warsaw. And it looked very similar to Killbuck. It's a little bit wider, but we think of the Killbuck as maybe it's not always pretty. But the water clarity was very similar to Killbuck here, and there were a lot of people. Those parking lots were full on both ends. And that would be about a similar stretch. It's about 6 miles to Killbuck from here. And so we think there's a lot of people out there. I'm not going to go over everything here, but you can kind of take a look at some of the information. There's a lot of participation in paddling that's just increased dramatically in the last couple of years. It's very kind of even. That pie chart shows you the age groups. I mean, it's very family friendly. It's a nice diverse mix of ages that are paddlers. And I thought this was really interesting. You're talking about the uptick in fishing as well, and there's not a lot of fishing access in Holmes County in public fishing. And it says the statistic is 88% of current fishing participants fished before the age of 12. So you can get those kids out there to start fishing, and that's something that they do later. The other benefit of this stretch is it gives you the pedal option by using Holmes County Trail. And we do this, my husband and I do this on the Cook proposing trail, so we don't need 2 vehicles. So we can just go as 2 of us, and you don't have to drive 2 separate vehicles. We can either take my rollerblades in the kayak with me and rollerblade back to get the truck, or you can spot a bike at the end, drive back, bike back to get the truck, while the other people in your party are fishing and having fun. You get to, exercise, slog your way back.
Yeah,
to the
another
truck.
area like that, somewhat nearby is Canal Fulton and Maslin on the Tuscaroras, and then the towpath trail runs right along
Yeah.
there too. Killbuck has actually much better water quality than Tusk does over in that area.
Yeah,
Probably more fishable and
right.
a better experience,
So,
less population for sure.
right, and the Killbuck is unique. It's not very developed. Once you're in that channel, you don't see a bunch of houses, you don't see anything, but there is quite a lot of wildlife, a lot of diversity. The biological diversity of Killbuck Creek is surprisingly good. It's not always pretty, but there's a lot of wildlife there. So we think that that would attract people. The walkability of Millersburg and Killbuck on the other end would lend itself very well for people to have eat dinner or eat lunch, take a kayak trip, hang around Killbuck a little bit, come back. There's a lot of options. Just having these towns right here that are so walkable. So there's that, and then also we see the benefit of conservation awareness. Of course, this is where our district's coming from. If people use something, they tend to care about it, and then we can talk to landowners. We can open it up. Hopefully, the schools can use it, Scouts, 4-H, and then we can have those conversations, have workshops, a lot of opportunities for landowner education, how they can take care of their streams, that sort of thing. We have been working with several partners. This all started kind of with the Emergency Management Agency has to do a plan every so many years, and I sat on that committee, and the more we got to talking about Killbuck, the more interest that came out, and that group was very enthusiastic, and that kind of got the snowball rolling a little bit. But got a listing of all the agencies that we've talked to that are want to partner with us. One of the big things of this project is on the back. You'll see that it's not a great map, but the Killbuck Watershed Land Trust and the Arc of Appalachia are 2 nonprofit groups that recently bought wetlands just outside of the village of Killbuck. And as part of that grant, they got a grant. The application was funded. They included a launch ramp in that. So we're hoping to work with them and get a launch ramp there. Talking to the Killbuck Fire Department to get something that would accommodate their boats. Talk to Millersburg as well, so we would make sure that the boats could be accommodated. We would hope that we would get a launch ramp in Millersburg at a later date, working with the Park District. But even if we don't have that right now, there is access on village property under the bridge. It's not great, but it is access. So people can still get in there even though it's not improved. So there's that piece of the project. If we are successful in getting the Muscatine Watershed grant, there's not a match requirement for that grant, but we would need to come up with some kind of maintenance plan. This is not just a one and done. You pull these things out and never have to worry about them again.
They're very cumulative. These jams, if you don't get them out of the way, they just build and build and build, as you can imagine. And the biggest across the field from Walmart is probably, I'm going to say it's probably maybe 60, would be about 60% of the work involved in this in one log jam. And, and the thing is, once you unplug it, it's just like, with your drain at home. Once you unplug it, if you maintain it, regularly flushing stuff through it, then things will go much better for you. And what happens when we retain water, in terms of hydrology, when we retain water in the stream that should have flowed through, the banks become softened because they stay wetter longer. And then when a big flood event comes along, it's much more easy for it to scour those banks and undercut it and pull more trees down into the river. And so it's an ongoing process, but if you can stay ahead of that, remove snags when they happen, maybe on an annual basis, it becomes a lot less of a project. we think too that, once people get used to using it and it becomes a popular thing, I really don't have any doubt that, there'd be a Friends of the River type thing, or Scouts or something
Right,
like
once
that.
he, once it gets going, we can find some volunteers to
that-
reduce those costs.
Yeah, that pops up everywhere, and we'll run into people that'll say, well, Mohican's right over there, and it's the most popular, canoed river in Ohio. This is a horse of a different color, let's say. It's a lot more natural water system. There's very, very little development along the sides, as Michelle said, which is both good and bad. If there were development, then we'd have more access to it, and it might be easier to clean these things out in the first place. But as a wild system goes, it's fairly incredible. There are a number of endangered species that are present in that river. At least 3 endangered species and several federally listed species too. The purple cat's paw mussel that you'll see a picture of, it's the only place,
Yeah,
the only place.
it's left that it's reproducing.
Yes, so,
Yeah, it's pretty special. And along those lines, there's wetlands, as you all know, along a lot of the corridor, so it's hard to get equipment to it. So we're working with a company, they're a nonprofit called River Rangers, and they specialize in working in stream from their boats and not using heavy equipment. So they would work from their boats, and then they use the debris to help stabilize the stream banks. So they've got this down to a science. They've worked across Ohio. We hear really good things about them. Other soil and water districts, excuse me, I've worked with them and really say that they do good work. So we would work with them, and then probably another local contractor for that big Walmart jam, because that would be pretty huge for them to try to take out with a boat. But, so we're being cognizant of trying to keep it as natural as we can and stabilize those banks as we do this. So I guess, the reason we're here today is hopefully to get your support, awareness of the project, get the word out there. Again, we're not guaranteed we're gonna get this funding, but if we could put you down as partners that would support the project, I think that would go a long way on our application. And then if you would consider maybe in your budget for future maintenance, in the future, I'm not sure what your discussions are gonna be tonight as far as funding, but if that's something that we could keep in mind. Estimating right now $5,000 to $10,000 annually until maybe, like you said, we get that friends group or volunteers that we could utilize, and we would expect all that from you, but we would ask several agencies and maybe some even private donors that they might help us come up with that kind of ongoing maintenance.
When would you find out if you were awarded the grant?
I'm not exactly sure. It's on a as submitted basis, so I'm hoping to get it out this week, and I don't think it would take very long. We've had at least one grant through that process. It was much smaller, but they let us know right away. They're really pretty good about, I don't think it'll drag out for 6 months or anything like that.
I think about 3 years ago, we had Boris Slogar here.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And
Right.
talked to us.
He's the lead on that program.
Okay.
So,
But can't we get money without a grant? Because we pay taxes into that.
right, and that's what they said. They set that aside. They set aside quite a large amount of that for conservation. And we also utilize that fund for cost share for cover crops. I don't know if you guys are aware, whenever you see the yellow airplane that flies over in September, Muskegon Watershed is the organization that helps fund that program. So they are costing $12 an acre for those cover crops that you guys see, for the most part. Some people do it, I don't know, but they spend a lot of money on that for us.
Okay, you're talking about Millersburg to Killbuck, what about north of Millersburg? That's probably one of the worst jams right up there.
Right, and that's what I put in here. This is likely phase 1. And we gotta start somewhere. And if you take bites of it that are doable and then get people involved and get people interested, then I think phase 2, we would go north and try to look at that and see what we learned in this phase and go north in that way.
And we also too thought that there was some utility in having people start here and then finish here, it's for the paddle and pedal thing, because then they'd be right in the downtown as well.
And there's not a lot of public land north that you could put in a line. You have to to acquire that from somebody, and that's gonna take longer. This is a little bit easier because there's public land in Millersburg and now in Killbuck.
What is 100% of the debris that's removed used for stabilization if it's suitable, and if not, what
They take some of it out and they chip it,
chip it?
or, yeah, they get it out of the floodplain, so it's not gonna. just
Yeah,
go right
consistent
back
with the Corps of Engineers
Right,
requirement,
yeah,
they'll
yeah.
remove
Yeah.
everything that can't be
Right,
reused.
and they take care of all the permitting and all that stuff too, so
Mhm.
that's really nice.
I think this is great. We have a lot of local kids that I know kayak, and it would be nice for them to not have to travel even down to Mohican. They can just put in here,
Right.
and especially the banks, the homeowners that live in town there. I think this is very beneficial for them.
Yeah, it is dangerous, those lock jams are dangerous, just to get an ankle caught in there, and
Sure.
it's not an ideal situation to try to go over.
What are the water depths from, let's say, Millersburg to Killbuck?
I can't give you, I don't know if you can give exact, but
Yeah, I don't have a mean depth, but it fluctuates, seasonally. August, September is the lowest water, that's when we try to get, most of the work done.
or even into.
But, during normal flow, in very few spots would it be even up to your chest. We paddled it in the beginning of August last
Right.
year.
And we never dragged, and that's a benefit too. Right, there's not, we never have to drag.
Except over
Over
debris piles.
debris, but not through the
And,
skin.
trash islands, that's one thing that we hadn't touched on yet.
Yeah,
Is there is an unbelievable, like a parking lot full of floating plastic bottles
yeah.
and tires and styrofoam and everything else in front of each one of these. And we'll remove that and,
Yeah.
and dispose of it in the proper manner.
Right. If there's nothing further, get out of your way.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate the time.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Do you need a letter of support from the
If you
village?
could, that would be great. That would be awesome. You could do that. Okay,
We'll do
wonderful. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. Hey, have a nice night.
Thank you.
Do you want us to make a motion, or do you, I'll make a motion to support their efforts to clear out the jams.
I'll second that.
Tom,
Aye.
Shoemaker,
Aye.
Coffee,
Aye.
Olin. Hofstadter,
Aye.
Vaughn.
Thank you. Do you have motions to suspend reading the minutes?
I so move.
Coffee,
Aye.
Olin. Shoemaker,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Hofstadter.
Aye.
Any additions or corrections?
I had one correction, and that was on the comments I had made about Cary and Sill Street, and people are still pulling over in the grass on Cary. Well, that's not possible. I'll tell you, it's Sill Street.
Any other additions or corrections? Do that motion pass?
So moved.
Second.
Olin. Coffee,
Aye.
Hofstadter,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Shoemaker,
Aye.
Vaughn.
Thank you. Go over resolution 2021-18, any question over here?
I have a question. The 36 trash cans at $416 a piece, are those ones for the downtown?
That should not be 36, there's 10 of them.
$15,000 for 10 of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
That
That
was-
match with the outsides?
That might be the size of them.
36 inches.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay,
That
okay.
scared me.
I know, well, I was really confused and I was like,
Yeah,
okay, it's the black ones with the metal on the outside. Okay.
Remember, we did, those are the expensive ones.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Half of them last year.
Yeah,
and then
this
the
year.
other half this year.
Yeah, I just wondered
Yeah.
about 36, I was
Yeah,
like,
no,
that's a lot.
36 of them.
Okay,
I think that is the size, what they call like a 36.
trash
falls
cans
in
in.
downtown, yep.
Good.
Yep. So, and we took the best of the remainder that were removed, and they'll be, swapping out for others in the parks and whatever that were in bad shape or prone to being tipped over. Put the good heavy ones out so they don't get tipped as much.
Good.
You have what you pay.
Awesome.
Second.
Who seconded? Humphrey,
Aye.
Hofstadter,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Hi.
Con,
Aye.
Shoemaker,
Aye.
Olin. Aye.
Thank you, chief.
I have nothing.
All right, design review board will meet next Wednesday. Jack Hoffmeyer has submitted an application for signage. I've not received anything from the county yet on their drawings. That was
Ask you
tabled.
about that.
So if they get it in, we'll review it. If not, it'll remain tabled. The resurfacing project, Melway's wrapping up pavement markings. They should be about done. There's a few stop marks needing done yet. Mid-Ohio's still working on the county project, and then they're coming to us, is what I've been told. So hopefully get them in here soon. Last week, Thursday, had the first meeting of the comprehensive plan group. The consultant is gonna send out a draft survey. I'll get that to everybody, as well as schedule a couple potential dates for the first focus group meetings, so we can get those set up. There's the focus areas that we talked about, so they want to have a public input meeting on each of those after they do the survey. And the survey will be done online, the paper. We talked about using like local media, Bargain Hunter, something that everybody gets, to get that out, as well as like countywide. They talked about like Amish safety, Amish safety days, kind of lumber. We have large groups having a booth at the fair, things like that, to get public input. And then we'll also be able to put a link on our water bill, directing people to an online version of the survey, where they can stop and get one, whatever they want to do. So be looking for that. Encourage your family, your friends to fill them out. The more feedback we get, the better. And then, once that's done, then the actual public meetings will be taking place. We've talked about the fairgrounds tentatively. We don't know yet. Depends on when those will be. Obviously during the fair, we aren't going to be having any public meetings there or other events, but so that's where we're at with that. The last thing I do have something for executive session under personnel, but late this afternoon I got an update from Kimball that just a reminder that there will be no service delay this next week because of the holiday falling on Sunday. So services as normal this week. Get that out to everybody.
Nate, speaking of paving, I think it was part of the work that the gas company did, that patch at School Street and East Jackson, it's all heaved up.
That's us.
That's us,
That's
okay.
Yep.
Is that something that we're going to be,
Yep. We've got a whole list of patches we need to fix.
okay?
Yep.
Very good, thank you.
Going back to Kimball, they sent out a letter with the last bill with the calendar of recycling. I think they've changed some of the terms of recycling for us. Cause there's some items there, they said that may say recycle, but they don't want.
No, I've not seen, I didn't see the letter.
I didn't pay attention to mine.
Just pay it.
Do you still have it? I can,
I'm not sure, but I'll look.
okay,
I know I tore off the calendar on recycle days, but
yeah, I'll ask our rep too tomorrow and see if something's changed, but I'm not heard anything on that. So, thank you.
I wonder if it's somehow connected to like what the county is now saying for their recycling things, they don't want plastic bags.
Yeah, I didn't see something about that.
well,
Recycle
we
bags.
didn't allow plastic bags with Kimball anyway. So, it was more than that.
Karen?
Approved budget. Meeting reminder. Thank you. Will be July 12th at 6:50 p.m. here.
Moving on to legislation, we'll have third reading, of ordinance 2021-103 by title only. An ordinance amending the zoning map, zone territory of the village of Millersburg. Are there any questions? Do you have a motion to pass?
So moved.
Second.
Humphrey.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Con.
Aye.
Poland. Shoemaker.
Aye.
Hofstadter.
Aye.
Thank you. Third reading, of ordinance 2021-104 by title only. An ordinance amending zoning map, zone territory of the village of Millersburg. Are there any questions? Do you have a motion to pass?
So moved.
Poland.
Aye.
Hofstadter.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Con.
Aye.
Shoemaker.
Aye.
Humphrey.
Aye.
Thank you. Third reading, of resolution 2021-16 by title only. A resolution declaring necessity and intention to appropriate for street and parking lot purposes a fee simple interest in and to a certain strip of property. Are there any questions? Do you have a motion to pass?
So moved.
Second.
Humphrey.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Shoemaker.
Aye.
Hofstadter.
Aye.
Con.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Thank you. The committee reports. Old business. New business. Hearing none, we will have a motion to go into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employee or official.
Second. Con.
Poland.
Aye.
Con.
Aye.
Hofstadter.
Aye.
Vaughn.